What's up, y'all? Happy 2021. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a great break. I hope you're ready to get back and get started with math. I know this was your favorite class first semester. You don't even need to mention it to me. But today is going to be our first lesson here in semester 2. We are going to talk about section 5.1. It is on page 218 and 219 of your workbook. All right, so if you have your workbook, 218 and 219. If not, just put it on a different piece of paper would be great. Okay, today we are going to talk about nth roots and radicals. Okay, so an nth root is basically like a square root or a cube root or a fourth root. You just don't know what the root is. You don't know if it's square or cube or fourth or fifth or sixth root or seventh root. So this applies to anything. Okay, here's what it looks like. All right, and there's three different pieces here. Okay, so the very first one is the number that's in front of the radical. Okay, well, the very first one is that symbol. So like the check mark symbol, we call that a radical. Okay, so this green line here, this is what we call the radical symbol. Okay, so if you hear me say radical, that's what that is. Okay, the n that you see in front, we call that the index. Okay, so the index is the thing that we don't know, index. That is the thing that we don't know. And the number on the inside or underneath the radical is what we call the radicand. Okay, so those are the three parts that we're going to look at today with the nth root. All right, so there's an index, there's a radical symbol, and there's a radicand. All right, the other thing that you're going to need to have today for these notes and for your assignment in class today is you're going to want to have Desmos open. Okay, so either a graphing calculator, if you have your own calculator, that would be great too, or Desmos. I'm going to use Desmos, okay, so that you all can kind of see how we do this. All right, so we're going to start with this very first example. So it says find all real nth roots. It says find the specified number of each root. All right, and it wants the real fourth roots of 81. So basically, it's telling us what the different parts are. So the fourth root means that's going to be my index. Okay, so the fourth root, I'm going to put a little I because that's my index. Okay, so I know where that's going to go. I know that's going to go in front. And the 81 is what we're going to put on the inside. So that's going to be our radicand. I'm just going to write rad for radicand so I can remember that. All right, this isn't an essential step. If you can do it without it, then by all means do that. Okay, so then we just write this problem in this form. Okay, so we're going to write the radical symbol. The index is a 4. I'm going to try to color coordinate. The radicand is a 81. So the fourth root of 81 is what this wants to know. Okay, now some of you might know what that is off the top of your head. So what number times itself 4 times will get you 81? Some of you may know, some of you may not know. Okay, if you don't know, it's not a big deal. We're going to use Desmos. Okay, so if we go to Desmos, I'm going to type this exact problem in, the fourth root of 81. To get this symbol to come up, when you go to Desmos, all right, you are going to click Functions. Okay, and then over here on the far right side, you see MISC, miscellaneous. Okay, and then right here, you see an N with a radical sign. All right, that's what we are going to click on. And it brings up that same symbol. And we wanted the fourth root of 81, and it tells us what our answer is right here. Right, it tells us that our answer is 3 to this problem. Okay, so I now know that the answer to this equals 3, and we're done. Okay, now there's one thing that we have to remember. Okay, there's one thing that's really important that I haven't written yet. So this answer is not totally correct yet. Whenever your index is even, so if the index is even, we have to put a plus or minus in front. So the answer to this problem is actually plus or minus 3. I didn't leave myself very much room, but plus or minus 3 right there. Okay, whenever the index is even, we have to put a plus or minus because positive 3 times positive 3 times positive 3 times positive 3 is 81, or if all those were negative, negative times a negative times a negative times a negative would also be positive. Okay, so whenever it's even, we have to put a plus or minus in front. All right, so the second problem is the same idea, but this time the index, it says cube. Okay, so the index is going to be a 3 in this case because that's cube, and 64 is going to be my radicand. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to set it up. So the radical symbol, The index is 3. The radicand is 64. And then we go back to our Desmos and do the cube root of 64. So we go back to this. I'm just going to keep that other one there. Again, we go to functions, miscellaneous, and click that N. And it is the cube root of 64. And we get 4. So we got our answer. Our answer to this question equals 4. Notice that this index is odd. 3 is an odd number, so I don't have to put plus or minus. And we're done. Okay? And we are finished with that one problem. All right, so let Desmos help you out. If you have a graphing calculator, you can just type that in too. Just look for that same symbol. It has a little N in front. Okay? The second question. Now it gave us a problem with a fraction exponent. Okay? But fraction and radicals are basically the same thing. We can just rewrite them. Okay, so over here on the left, you'll see I've written down how we can translate from one to the other. So C is just any number. Let's say you have a number raised to a fraction exponent. Okay, to turn that into a radical, the number on the bottom becomes the index, so it goes in front. The number on the top goes on the inside. All right, so we can rewrite a fraction as a radical, a fraction exponent as a radical pretty easily. Top number goes inside, bottom number goes outside. That's the way I've always remembered it. Bottom number outside, top number inside. So let's say I wanted to rewrite this one. 25 to the 1/2 power. Okay, so 25 is my C, right? 25 is in the same place as C. So I'm going to put the radical symbol. The C is 25. So I'm going to put that on the inside. Okay. The M is the top number. The M is a 1 in this case. All right. So the M is a 1. So I'm going to put the 1. You don't have to put the 1. 25 to the first is just 25. And then the bottom number, the N, is a 2. Now, you don't have to put the 2 either, because even if I don't have the 2, it still means square root. But just so we can see where the numbers go, I'm going to put the 2. All right, so this is basically the square root of 25. You can go back to Desmos and type that in, but I'm willing to bet you all know the square root of 25. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 25 is 5. And we're done. Right? So if you can convert back and forth, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. All right? Let's do the same thing with this one. So I want to rewrite this. This is a fraction, right? So I want to rewrite it in radical form. So I put my big radical symbol. All right? The C value, remember the thing that has the exponent is 32. The top number is a 2, and the top number goes on the inside. So 32 squared, and I'm going to put this in parentheses so we don't think it's just 2 squared. So 32 squared. The bottom number is a 5, so I'm going to put that in front. So I want to know what's the 5th root of 32 squared. Okay? Now 32 squared is going to be a big number. So we're going to go to Desmos and let it help us out. So again, functions, miscellaneous, click that button. So the 5th root of 32 and squared is right there. The 5th root of 32 squared, and it gave me an answer of 4 right there. So again, it tells me exactly what I need. All right, so the 5th root of 32 equals 4, and we are finished. All right, so remember that top number inside, bottom number outside. Top number inside, bottom number outside. We should make a little rap for that. Top inside, bottom outside. Okay? Now we're going to go to this third one. All right? Again, it's the same thing. Look, this is a fraction. So in order to help us solve that, I want to rewrite it in radical form. Okay? So I'm going to rewrite this. Now that negative, notice it's in front of the whole thing. So I'm just going to keep it in front. If it was in parentheses, I would have to worry about it. But since it's in front, I just keep it in front. My C, right, my C value right here is going to be the 16. 16. Bottom number goes in front. So the bottom number in this case is a 4. So I'm going to put that in front. The top number goes inside. The top number is a 3, so I'm going to put that here. And then what do you know? We go back to Desmos and we type this in. Negative 4th root of 16 cubed. So I go back to Desmos, I type in negative 4th root of 16 raised to the 3rd. And I get an answer of negative 8. So my answer to this problem is negative 8. Dun, 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 dun. Hopefully this makes sense. Remember, you can always pause it or stop it, rewind it if I go a little too fast for you. If you look at B, right, it's ready to go. So we just go to Desmos and type that in. It's already in radical form. I could rewrite it in fractional form. Actually, let's do that real quick just to make sure we know how to do it. So if I wanted to rewrite this, 3.5 is my C, right, is my C value. Now I'm just going backwards. 3.5 is my C. M, remember, M was the number that was inside. So M was inside and that goes on top. So inside is a 4. The bottom number is whatever was in front, 5. Right? So I can switch back and forth pretty easily between these two. Okay? So again, we just go to Desmos and type this in. 3.5, the 5th root of 3.5 to the 4th. If I did that, I think you guys know how to type that in by now. It would give me an answer of 2.72. And it says round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so 2.72 would be my answer for that one. All right. Okay, so those are the first 3 examples. These next ones are a little bit harder. All right, so now we're going to look at example 4. Okay, now it wants us to simplify, but now it gives us numbers and variables. All right, so the easiest way that I think to do this is now it says the cube root of all this. I'm going to split this all up into separate pieces. Okay, so I'm going to take the cube root of negative 8, that's one piece, times the cube root of a to the 3rd, that's the second piece, and then I also have a b to the 9th, times the cube root of b to the 9th. Right, so I'm going to split it up into those 3 pieces. Okay, this is the way that I've always done it. And now I can solve each one of these separately. So I just need to do each one. So the cube root of negative 8, if you don't know your cubes, again, go back to Desmos, functions, this button, the cube root of negative 8. And it tells me it's negative 2. So I now know that this first term, first problem is going to be negative 2. Now this is a little bit different because now I have variables. All right, so basically all we want to do is divide the number in front and the number inside. So 3 divided by 3 is just 1, a to the 1st. Don't even have to write the 1 if you don't want. 9 divided by 3 is 3, so b to the 3rd power, and we are finished. Negative 2a b to the 3rd power. So just divide them. Okay, we'll talk about what happens if they don't divide evenly in the next section. So don't worry about that quite yet. Okay? Excuse me. We're going to do the same thing here for b. So let's split this up. The 4th root of 256 times the 4th root of x to the 12th times the 4th root of y to the 24th. Right, so split them all up. The 4th root of 256, kind of hard. So what number times itself 4 times would get you 256? If you aren't sure, just go right back here. So functions, miscellaneous, that button, 4th root of 256 gives me an answer of 4. Okay, Desmos makes it real easy. Gives me an answer of 4. So this first term is 4, and then divide. 12 divided by 4 is 3, so x to the 3rd. 24 divided by 4 is 6, y to the 6th power. And we're finished. Okay? We got one problem left. Now we're going to solve a problem. Okay, so solve the equation. This is going to be solved exactly like you have solved everything else. We're just going to add one little step to it. So 5x to the third equals 320. Okay, I just rewrote the problem. Now, think back to your Algebra 1 days. If I gave you a problem that just said 5x equaled 320, I bet you could solve that, right? You would divide by 5. We're going to do the exact same thing here. Don't let the x to the third freak you out. We're going to do the same steps. So first, I'm going to divide by 5. The 5s would cancel. So I'm left with x to the third equals 64. Here's where we're going to add one thing to it, okay? Now, last semester, we talked about if you had a problem that said x squared equaled 4, right? And you needed to get rid of the square. To get rid of the square, you would just square root it, right? And the square root and square would cancel. We're going to do the same thing right here, but now instead of a square root in front, we are going to put a cube root in front because I got to get rid of that exponent of 3. So that means this cube root and cube would cancel, and I'm left with just x. And all I have to figure out is what's the cube root of 64. Okay, and the cube root of 64 will be 4. If you aren't sure how to do that, just put it in Desmos again. The cube root of 64 will give you an answer of 4. All right? Okay, one last problem. One last problem on day 1. So, solve this. 2p to the 4th equals 162. Just like over here, how I divided by 5 first, I'm going to do the same thing right here. But I'm going to divide by 2 first. So the 2's would cancel. So I'm left with p to the 4th equals 81. Now, over here, I had x to the 3rd, so I did a cube root. Now I have p to the 4th, so I need to do the 4th root of both sides. That way, the 4's would cancel, and I'm just left with p equals the 4th root of 81. If we went to Desmos, just to show you one last time, the 4th root of 81, 4th root of 81 is 3. The 4th root of 81 is 3. But notice that that index, that number in front, that exponent, this 4 right here, is even. So that means it has to be plus or minus 3, like we talked about in the beginning. Okay? So those are our section 5.1 notes. All right? You guys have your Math Excel assignment. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate you all.